My name is Sheila Elvis. This is my near-death experience at age 16 due to auto accident and broken neck. It was July 12, 1975, and I had just turned 16 on June 29th. Ironically, it had been an extremely difficult year for our family of 2 parents and 5 kids. My brother Greg was the oldest. He was an intelligent, very athletic and handsome, 21 years old. While on break from college that previous January 1975, Greg had been body surfing in Acapulco, Mexico, when he became caught up into a 30-foot wave and smashed onto the rock-hard bottom of the Pacific Ocean floor. Instantly, he was paralyzed, having had crushed his spine at the level of his 3rd and 4th cervical vertebra. Greg would have surely drowned, if not for the frantic actions of friends, family, and bystanders whom literally fished Greg out from the turbulent surf. For 2 weeks, Greg was kept conscious and immobilized in the primitive open-air Acapulco hospital, until being flown back to the States, as a Navy dependent, to Walter Reed Medical Center. Greg later described taking up the space of 5 commercial airliner seats, due to being sprawled out in traction on a striker frame. My parents had their hands full, dealing with the aftermath of my brother's accident and his new reality, 21 years old, and now confined to a life in a wheelchair. Between January 1975 and July 1975, in addition to my brother's accident, my mother's sister and her father passed away. Our beloved family pet Bonbon passed away. My oldest sister Stacy had gotten married at 19 years old and gave birth to her first child in April 1975. It was Stacy, along with her husband Dave, whom was staying at our parents' house on July 12, 1975, to watch over us 3 younger siblings, while our parents were on their very first short vacation since Greg's accident. They had gone for a few days to the Lodge of the Four Seasons, south of St. Louis, Missouri. On the evening of my accident, my friend Talisa and I were with her boyfriend David and his friend Jim, driving around in Dave's new red Toyota Celica. We had seen my sister Stacy and her husband earlier at a local German festival. Stacy said that Talisa could spend the night at our house, if her mother said it was all right. Talisa's boyfriend drove out to the edge of town, to a party near the country club, where Talisa's mom would be. That way Talisa could obtain permission to sleep over at my house. I remember seeing and talking to Talisa's mother at that party. All 4 of us returned to the car and headed back into town. There was an area, known as the 8th Mile, located on our route home, notorious for drag racing. I don't crisply remember how long that we talked with friends there, or hung out. I am certain that at some point, while the 4 of us were in the car, where I was in the passenger front seat, that the car ran off the road at a very high rate of speed, and that my face smashed through the windshield. Then everything went completely black. I clearly remember experiencing complete comfort, of being totally free from any sort of pain or feelings of bodily sensations at all. I've explained to people many times that if you could think of your most enjoyable bodily sensation of any time, massage, runner's high, anything pleasurable that has ever been experienced from within your physical body, it could not compare to the experience of total comfort during that state of blackness. I think that it is because we experience feelings within our physical bodies through nerves and receptors. Yet in that state, you do not feel any of that. I awoke to the face of Talisa's boyfriend Dave, directly leaning over me, bloody, slapping my face into consciousness. I could tell that his friend Jim was nearby, and that I was in a ditch at the roadside, apparently lying supinely in very tall blonde grasses. Dave seemed relieved to see that I was alive. I instantly asked him where Talisa was. As I asked him that question, he seemed to glance over toward the highway and saw that she was wandering into the roadway, disoriented with whiplash of her neck, I later learned. Dave ran to move my friend Talisa to safety. Then I fell into the totally comforting blackness again. Later I learned that some friends of ours drove upon the wreck scene and called an ambulance. I remember waking up from that complete black void several times. I saw myself lying in the ditch while hovering above my body. My very long hair was all matted in the grass, my eyes were closed, and I had a lot of abrasions and coagulated blood over one eye area. It seemed like I was floating in and out of that totally comforting black void. I clearly remember the ambulance crew arriving. I hovered above them as they carefully immobilized me onto a stretcher and placed me into the bay of the ambulance for transport. I distinctly remember the faces of my friends and of the first responders, as I have rarely seen such concern and compassion expressed in another person's face that way since. I could also see and hear everything being said at the scene, as I floated above the roof of the ambulance, although I could see under the roof and into the ambulance. I returned to the black comforting state again. I remember waking up again on and off. In the local emergency room, I saw my brother-in-law, Dave. He held my hand in the emergency room and said for me to hang in there. I remember hearing a very rude doctor at the local emergency room as he stated, "That's what those kids get for being out there parking." For many years, that extremely inaccurate and unprofessional comment nauseated me. It definitely made me an advocate for patients in similar type situations. It seemed as if I was conscious on and off during that following day at the local hospital. I remember all of the visits from high school friends, mostly relieved to see me open my eyes. At some point, it was decided that I needed to be sent via ambulance to the St. Louis University Hospital for care. Weighted tongs were attached to my head for traction of my neck. I was awake on and off during the 60-mile ambulance drive to St. Louis. I woke up in a trauma treatment area of the University Hospital in St. Louis, from my comforting void of blackness, and I was floating above myself, lying supinely on an exam table, eyes closed, with Crutchfield tongs and neck traction, seeing my body there motionless, as my team of 5 neurosurgeons stood around me, considering my case. As I floated above them, and me, I could tell that I was floating higher than the ceiling, that I actually could move through the floor/ceiling. I could see that people with a lot of white, nursing type, shoes were walking right by me, as I seemed to hover near their feet, at the next floor up. I clearly remember hearing the neurosurgeons confer, and that one of them had a bald spot on the top of his head. I felt like a ball of pure energy, like a bunch of atoms floating in a cohesive mass, no longer confined to that physical body laying down there, although that body was not dead, and it even moved from time to time. At about that time, I became aware that I was in a much less confining dimension, more than our 3-dimensional world. Communication was telepathic, just like how we talk to ourselves, within our own heads. I was aware of an extremely compassionate interaction with another being infused with life, energy, and pure love. He was similar to a Jesus-type figure, completely full of light. There was a beautiful library-type area, where I was able to experience a life review of my past, present, and future, sort of an extremely efficient fishbowl type, with a 360-degree view. Very cool. It became clear, telepathically, after that life review, that it was just not my time to go. I must have seen that I did not complete whatever mission or task that I had come to my life to accomplish. I'm pretty sure also that I saw loved ones and family whom had passed. It seems as if it would not be beneficial for my mission task for me to know or remember everything in my review. From then on, I just knew that I had important things to accomplish before it would be time for me to go. I immediately described my experiences to my father after I came out of my coma state. He gave me a book called Life After Life, which led me to feel validation for my experiences, reading that others had similar events. When I mentioned the experiences to my chief neurosurgeon, he seemed a bit skeptical. He held on to the notion that head trauma and/or chemicals released into the brain after trauma likely caused me to believe that the experience was real, even though I repeated things that I saw and heard, as he and his team of neurosurgeons were attending to my case, including detail of one colleague's bald spot. After I could be discharged from the hospital several weeks later, I returned home with a halo traction brace screwed into my skull. I noticed a profound change. It seemed as if I started out with such a positive outlook that I felt great peace of mind. Eventually, due to day-to-day exposure to other people, problems, and stressors, the positive and peace of mind feelings began to suffer erosion. I have learned that humans have more power to influence circumstances through thoughts, orientation, and outlook than we are aware. My brother Greg, who broke his neck 6 months before I broke mine, and I have discussed our experiences many times over the past 37 years. He was envious that I had an out-of-body, near-death experience, and he did not. He said that as he floated in the Pacific Ocean face down, he did not think that he could not move, was paralyzed and likely to die. Instead, Greg said he thought, "Damn, now I won't be able to meet up with friends in Florida after this trip." Watch this near-death experience next about a woman who met a giant in the afterlife and was shown his life on Earth.